One last thing before we can render in Podium, let's go to Shadows and turn on the shadows. And lastly, just click the first icon here in the Podium toolbar, and that'll start the rendering process. It's going to begin processing the geometry, and it's also going to bring up this OOPR, which is essentially the rendering manager, where you can see any renderings that you have in the queue. You can also click Show, and that'll show you a preview of the rendering. Now, we can't preview it just yet because it does have to process all of the geometry. The time to process all the geometry really depends on how many faces you have in your model. And a key point here is if you're doing an image or rendering like this, you may want to save a separate file with just all the geometry in here, and you can delete geometry like things in the dining room or things in the kitchen, because right now it's actually reading those faces, however you don't see them in the model. So once it processes all the geometry, you can then open up the OOPR. You can then click Show, and it'll begin by gathering all of the lighting. It'll then pre-render the image. And this is usually a good indication to see how the lighting levels are. In most cases for interiors, they're going to come in pretty dark. So you usually have to adjust the levels in Photoshop afterwards. A new feature with Podium version 2 Plus is the ability to actually have its own image editor where you can do some of those lighting levels and adjustments directly inside of the OOPR here. Once the rendering's complete, you can take a look at it in your Finder and see the results. The first thing we'll notice is that the image overall is pretty dark. However, we can adjust that in the next video by bringing the levels up in Photoshop. You will see that nice blurred reflection here, so it's bringing in the light. You can see the bump map in the carpet, as well as on the wood here. So the wood starts to look more three-dimensional. The other thing you'll notice is the lighting from the objects that we have. So we have that light here, and these three lights here. That's pretty much the basics of how to export out a rendering using Podium. The last thing that we need to do is just post-process this in Photoshop, and we'll do that with this image as well as a few other exports from the SketchUp model itself.